Hello and welcome to The Good, The Bad and The Worst, a podcast where we watch movie trilogies and series and decide which movie is pushing 30, and if it doesn't wise up, it's going to die an old maid. I'm your host Griner, and joining me...
I'm Luke Morgan, and I feel like a Kentucky Fried Idiot.
He called me the Italian stallion, and I had no prime. I had nothing.
Boys, we're kicking off our run of Rocky movies with the first three Rocky films. Do you guys have any history with the Rocky films, or even Sylvester Stallone, for that matter? Conan, was he a big part of your childhood?
As a person born in 1993, I think I was way past Stallone's heyday. But no, Rocky's been one of the films on my list of shame. You know, timeless classic that I've never seen. Because I think it's just been sort of done to death. It's one of those archetypal films that every movie that has any similarity to it just takes really honestly. And everyone knows, you know, the running. There's the constant joke about Rocky having a montage. There's even that song in Team America about it. You know, like it's been done to death. It's cliched, but this is the first time seeing it, so it's kind of like going in fresh, but not really. And I was surprised how much I didn't actually know about it, because these films are not. At least the first one is not what I was expecting.
Luke?
Sylvester Stallone's sort of a weak hat for me, where I have lumped him in with Nicolas Cage, where I've tried to avoid anything.
Stop hating
do
You're wrong on both of those counts,
Stallone
too.
and Nicolas Cage. I don't know. It's something like I feel like it's, you know, more seen older Stallone, the plastic surgery, and I was just like, oh, like that sort of thing. I was just like, I'm not a fan of, and I just associated that with the old Rocky movies. I never watched any of them movies, never watched Rambo or anything like that, and just was like, I don't like this person. I haven't watched The Expendables. I haven't watched any of that because I was just like, no, I'll avoid anything Stallone related. One of my mates in high school was a diehard Rocky fan. I used to always make fun of him because he loved Rocky so much. But yeah, had never watched them, and yeah, I'm interested to talk about them because they caught me by surprise, I will admit, and I may have come around on Stallone a little bit. So
yeah, before the podcast, I was dubbed the 80s guy. My parents definitely had a penchant for 80s action movies. You know, they loved Aliens and Terminator, but never Sly Stallone. I'm not sure what it was, but I never saw Rambo. I never saw the Rocky films. I never saw any of those films that I feel like are pretty pivotal, you know, late 70s, 80s films. But my wife is really into Sylvester Stallone. I caught her watching Cliffhanger the other week just because she felt like it, and that's a bit weird to me, but that's okay. And she introduced me to Demolition Man, which is right up there. It's a great film. Everybody should see it. So this, yeah, and these movies, like you say, Conan, kind of archetypal, kind of on my list of shame as well. But yeah, they caught me by surprise a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm keen to give more of a go to Stallone, like to go back and watch his catalog. Like, but yeah, he's a really big part of 80s. Like, probably the second biggest star of the 80s, I feel. And so it feels ignorant on my behalf to have seen none of it.
Yeah.
I was going to say, and just touching on what Conan said earlier as well, like, even though I hadn't seen these films, I felt like, you know, anytime, like, I have Eye of the Tiger on my phone in my workout playlists, that obviously I listen to that playlist all the time. And like, whenever it comes on, I felt like I could picture the training montage, even though I'd never seen these films. I used to work in a meat workers lab, and I started punching the cows if I was Rocky. Even though I haven't seen them,
the weird thing is that song doesn't come out until the third movie, and
Yeah.
I was so surprised.
The montage that we all think of is in the first movie. Yeah, it's
But
interesting.
it's to the Rocky music, that da da da, which everyone else
as well.
knows.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Iconic.
Yeah,
Do you think everyone's sorry?
I was gonna say, it just really has been done to death, hasn't it? This movie, like I don't think I could count the number of times The Simpsons has referenced it.
Yeah. Like, I feel like some of these scenes, they'd be up there with like Titanic as the things that everybody does when you're in a situation. Like, you get on a boat, you get to the front of the boat, and you scream out, "I'm king of the world."
Yeah,
everyone does that once in their life. I feel like everyone, if you're ever in Philly, or if you're ever running up and you see a set of stairs, at some point you probably run up and you run around with your arms up.
Yeah, get the arms up. Yeah.
And sort of everyone's done it at least. Like, it's that iconic. Every single person knows it, even if they never know what it's from. And if you see a big cow carcass, you punch it.
Exactly, or just a cow out in the paddock or something like that.
Just
You
a
just
laugh.
punch it in the gut. I was gonna say, like, I've never seen it, and the amount of times I've probably said like, "Yo, Adrian, I did it." Like,
Yeah.
it's just even lines like that I know are iconic, and I try and do the
I've definitely
sly voice
yelled out
when I'm doing it.
Adrian a number of times for
exactly.
no reason.
Yeah.
I only work out in a grey sweatsuit with lots of holes in it. Like,
Yep.
Yeah,
it's surprising how much this movie has shaped my life. No, all right, well, let's get into it with some stats.
Stats.
Rocky 1, 63 on Metacritic. Rocky 2, 61 on Metacritic. Rocky 3, 57 on Metacritic. I don't know how I feel about Metacritic as, rating these movies that came out before Metacritic. IMDb has them 8.1, 7.3, and 6.8 respectively.
It's a comment. Yeah, I was surprised that Metacritic was so low, but these films were like real. So the first one at least was a real sleepy hit. Like it's got a real meta quality to it, where it's kind of the same underdog story as the content of the film. There's this little, and I'm sure we'll unpack this more, but like the story behind it, how it got made, and the strange runaway success that it is.
Yep.
I think it really was just a crazy, like, people didn't see it or appreciate it or understand it, but it just exploded.
Yeah.
It got 10 Academy Award nominations.
Yeah. Pretty bonkers.
First Rocky, that's insane. The Rotten Tomatoes scores are slightly more different. I feel like it's like 91%, 71%, and then 60 something percent for 3. But
yeah, right.
Yeah.
It's Rocky 1 is not, I will get to it, but it's not the movie. It's not the movie I thought it was, and I wonder if it's not the movie people thought it was when going into it back then. Gross profits budget $960,000 for Rocky 1, made $117 million.
That's ridiculous.
It's a good return. That's a really good return. Rocky 2, $7 million budget, made $85 million, and Rocky 3, $17 million budget, made $125 million. All wildly successful films. I don't think anyone's sneezing at any of that.
I feel like all of that budget is just Stallone's paychecks, right? Each one, especially because you look at the credits and it's like written by Sylvester Stallone, directed by Sylvester Stallone, produced by Sylvester Stallone.
Yeah,
I feel like he's like the ScoMo of movies. Every time he gives himself more jobs, and he's like, "Yeah, I deserve this money."
I feel like it probably is half his money, the budget for the first film. Though I don't know where he got it from, but he's bankrolling this, writing it, directing it, acting in it.
I read a story today about like Rocky 1, how he had like $100 to his name when he'd turned down like an offer to sell the rights to like the story he'd written for Rocky 1 for $360,000. Like the studio wanted someone like James Caan or Nick Nolte to play him, and he refused to sell it for $360,000 when he had like $100 to his bank account. And I mean, obviously that paid dividends for him. He made the right choice, and he trusted himself. So
yeah, like it's all the best movies are kind of about movies in some way, and this is a really good example of that, where it's not about movies, but it's so intentionally and so unintentionally about him and about Stallone, this underdog, really struggling to make ends meet like that. He was going to sell his dog, I think Butkus is his dog. So he was going to sell his dog because he couldn't afford to buy him food. And he's just like, no, I believe in this so much. I believe in this story that I've written. And he wouldn't sell it. He's like, I have to be in it. He finally gets the deal. The production house is like, all right, it's all you sell. It's something to do with like the loss comes out of the producer's salary or something. And it was one of those deals where basically no one believed in it, right, except for one guy and Sylvester Stallone, and everyone else is like, if this goes wrong, it's all on you. You guys will suffer from it. So they were willing to just wipe it. And sure enough, through sheer force of will almost, he just makes this pretty incredible film.
Yeah, let's get into it. Rocky 1, a small-time Philadelphia boxer gets a supremely rare chance to fight the world heavyweight champion in a bout in which he strives to go the distance for his self-respect.
And he does.
He does. Yeah, it's interesting to look at the history of this movie and just see this is Stallone. Like, this is him all over. This is his story. The fact that he believed in it so much and wouldn't let anyone else play the character, like it's pretty impressive. And I don't know, I feel like those situations often, I don't want to say always, because there's examples like The Room where they don't produce a great product at the end, but
No.
I don't know. There are lots of good examples. I was trying to think of more bad examples, but The Room definitely came to mind. It's a success in its own way, but
Yeah. Oh, like there's countless little projects like that, like little indie films that have been.
yeah,
You see that people put their, and I guess for every success you hear there's 100 that you
don't hear about. You're right.
You know,
Yeah.
like I've known people who have made films themselves, and it's like, oh, that's really cool, but yeah, it's like, yeah, nothing happened. It's like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, but yeah, this is just this just happened. It's fascinating as well because it's based on a real story, right? So there was this boxer named Chuck Wepner who actually had the opportunity to fight Muhammad Ali. And so basically, Stallone sees this fight on one night, writes the script in 3 days, and goes, this is my story. And so it's really interesting. Whereas, like nowadays, I feel this sort of in the interconnected world that we have, where something like books get auctioned before they're even finished. Like people are citing rights, like, yeah, this has got to be big, so we want the movie now. So as soon as it comes out, we can have something ready. So I feel like if this happened now, like it'd be a story that somebody somewhere would be straight away, and they'd contact this boxer and be like, "Hey, can we have the rights to your story?"
Yeah.
Whereas back in the 70s, like, it just didn't happen, and so Stallone basically writes the story of this other guy,
himself being in that role of
taps into his own sort of stuff, which is really interesting, and I think what makes the story compelling. And then is like so it's like a year after the fight, he's made this movie that's essentially the same thing. It's pretty cool.
And it's not the movie I expected it to be. Like, there's not a lot of boxing in this movie.
No.
Like, there's a bit at the start, there's a decent chunk at the end, but this is a story about Rocky, about the character. Like, we look at him and his growth, and yeah, it really, really surprised me. Like, this movie was not what I expected it to be. Like, I thought this was going to be the Mighty Ducks, but with boxing, right? Like lots of matches of hockey where they win a heap and then they lose because they get too cocky or whatever, and then they have a chance to come back and take the championship or whatever. And I feel like lots of sports movies fit into that category, and I'm amazed that this one doesn't.
Yeah.
Like, basically, I had the same assumption. I just thought he's going to be this young, underdog guy that just goes through all these fighters, making his own name, and then gets an opportunity. Never he's not even like the most popular fighter in his gym. Like, he doesn't have a locker in his gym. And he's just like, no, you're a bum. And then this guy just been like, oh, let's have an exhibition fight, and all going through the names and just like, oh, Italian Stallion, that sounds good. Let's go with that one. Let's go with that guy.
It's Italian Stallion.
Italian. Yes. Yeah.
I think that's what's been deterring me, like what had been putting me off from watching this. I don't care for boxing really at all. And I'm just not a big fan of sports movies, Funnily enough, as a very non-athletic person, I don't care for sport. And so I was like, boxing movie, I can't really do it. But yeah, like you've all said, when you're watching it, it's like there is 20% boxing. And it's pretty, and by the time you see it, it's actually really exciting to watch because you are so invested in the stakes of it. You're so invested in the story.
Yeah. That's the other thing that surprised me about this movie and this trilogy is how much Rocky as a character grew on me. At first, I'm like, is he going to speak like that the whole time? He sounds like he's brain damaged. I don't think I can cope with this. And by the end, I'm like, go Rocky, punch Creed, you can make it. You can last the whole 15 rounds. Like, I was so into it, and it just... Yeah. It amazed me. Like, it really snuck up on me. And by the end, I'm freaking cheering him on from my couch. It's interesting. It's strange.
Yeah. I coming into this as someone who disliked Stallone, and especially the way he talked, and I had the same thing as you growing at the start, where I was just like, oh my god, like this is going to be a frustrating experience, like watching him try and act and all this sort of stuff. And yeah, every now and again when he has to cry, my issues with it, like his acting comes out. But they got to a point where, like I said to my wife, because we watched these together, towards the end of the second one, where I was like, God damn, I'm starting to find the character really like endearing at how simple he is. Like, as in, like, all these people are getting up in his face and just being like, you're going down. He's just like, oh man, he's still mad, hey? Like, he's just like, oh, he's still upset. Okay, then let's fight. Like, he's just like chill. It's like super chill. And I'm like, yeah, okay. I don't know. And like, I was like, is this really genius? Is he playing this guy with, like, is he playing that he has been punched the crap out of, and like he is, a bit slow, and a bit punch drunk or whatever, and and I don't know if that went into it at all. And then obviously, you know, yeah, not to get ahead, but like it sort of changes by the third one. But and even that kind of makes sense in terms of the story of like the success he's had, and now he's a celebrity. Maybe that, you know, it ties into him getting help and stuff like that. But yeah, my opinion was really changed by the end of this film of Stallone and this film. I was like, God damn it, I'm actually along for the ride here, and I'm ducking and jiving. I'm like, oh my God, no. But I'll just say, like, watching all the fights, the amount of times I was just like, man, can you just block? Like, just
I'm not sure if he's a good
punched
boxer.
in the face. No, he's a good puncher. Until the third one, I feel like the third fight is where we finally see some Apollo in him, which is great. And I'm like, oh, finally, some ducking and weaving. Yeah. But I'm like, just watching him get punched and like over and over again in the face. I was like, this is so frustrating. Just like, learn defense.
I'm like, is he a good boxer, really? I feel like you can't be even close to that level if you just like, I will tire his fist out with my head.
He's Homer Simpson. He can just take a hit.
There's totally like that episode gets a joke completely from that, right? I feel like they have the exact same thought as us. Like, it's so bad. Like, I completely came around on Stallone in this though for those same reasons. I feel like his perception is very much a dumb meathead, on par with Schwarzenegger, like sort of hard to understand, has gotten his role because he's very big and sort of has a certain machoism about him. And like every single person, if you say, what does Stallone sound like? They just go, like, everyone knows what Stallone's voice sounds like.
Yeah.
And it's a joke beyond a joke at this point of like, he's just this guy who can't really talk, but he looks like a quintessential, he's what the 80s looks like. But I'm like, he's actually I completely came around him. Like, he's actually a pretty good writer. Like, these films are surprisingly well written, and the character, it's not one note. Like, Rocky is incredibly, like, it taps into a real deep human core, and like each one I'm expecting, okay, it'll be the exact same dilemma, but it's not. He sort of always excavates away these levels of why else would Rocky feel this way? What would he actually feel in this situation? And like in the sequel, which we'll talk about, it's very similar to the first one, but he's like, he finds sort of the reason for feeling that way in that situation. And the beats actually feel earned, and it never feels cliche or cheesy. It's actually like, no, that's totally. And the third again, it's like, I totally get why you feel this way. It's really, I was really surprised by how much Stallone had actually sort of thought this out and fleshed out the character. It
was interesting looking at. I was at the start. I was like, why do people like Rocky? And I'm looking it up, and people like, if you look at the context of the time, like America had just come out of the Vietnam War, hadn't done very well. The economy's not doing great. There's lots of people down on their luck, and like Rocky just epitomizes that person, right? Like he's down on his luck. He's the everyman. He's simple. Like he's not out there being clever or being super witty or anything like that. Like he has street smarts, and he's obviously got a heart of gold. That's the other thing about him.
Yes,
but he gets this lucky chance and takes advantage of it. And he doesn't even win, right? Like he just goes the distance. He defends his honor. He defends his honor, and it's fascinating.
It's like they even say it there. It's like, this is the American dream, or like this is the land of opportunity.
Yeah,
and they talk about again. They talk about how Stallone is like Rocky having this fight is essentially America in a nutshell, and it's kind of true. Like again, this movie is about that, but it's also, like you say, it's the spirit of America. It's the ultimate underdog story that they see themselves as, of like, we're in a bad time, but we can, with enough hard work and the opportunity of living in America, you can make something of yourself, and like, not to be snide, but that's a very human story as well. Mm. So you can't see why this is exactly what America needed, and why it's an endearing enough concept to make 9 movies essentially, like at least 6.
It's a proper franchise, yeah.
The amount of times I kept being like, okay, obviously he doesn't retire.
Yeah.
Obviously this won't be his last fight, because I know there's another 5 movies.
Yeah. It's always one more day of retirement.
I really appreciated that Rocky he wasn't interested, like lots of sports movies, they're about the love of the game, right? The love of the sport. But Rocky, I don't want to box anymore. Like, I want to retire. I'm happy with what I've done. Yeah. Like, not so much in the first movie, but it definitely migrates to that. And it's just interesting. Like, it's not like they're lauding, boxing as this great sport. He's talking about how people shouldn't do this. You're going to get brain damage. It's going to be really bad for you in the long run. It's very different to other sports movies.
I like I think it's the start of the second one where they're asking him like, oh, like, what was going through your mind like after that round, and he's just like, I should have finished school. Like, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yeah.
Like, they're like, oh my god, what's your motivation here? He's just like, oh man, this hurts. Like, this isn't good.
Yeah.
Yeah. The great thing, with Adrian, she's like, why do you box? Can't sing or dance. It's like completely, he's got absolutely no talents or skill in life, so he can fight. It's right. It's a real sort of, it's like an earnest look at the sport, right? It's not like, he's not like, I am the spirit of a warrior and I must crush my opponents and that's glorious. He's like, no. He's just like, this is life. This is working class Pennsylvania. And this is just what we got to do.
I liked how that even like came into play with when he's like offered the fight, against Apollo, and he's just like, oh no, thanks. He'll beat the shit out of me. It's like, nah, I'm good. I'm no match for him. That's silly. Why would I fight him? Like, he's not about the challenge. Like, as in, he's just like, oh no, that's not realistic. I'm not going to do well in that at all. He's so good. But speaking of like Apollo Creed, man, what a man. in these films,
good man.
Like the physiques in these films, I'm just like, holy crap.
It
made me feel really bad eating my cheesels. I was like, what a hummus.
Yeah, Carl Weathers, like, definitely a specimen of a man. But man, I feel like he carried the first half of that movie in terms of acting chops. Like, I wasn't convinced by Stallone at first, but man, I was enjoying every time Apollo Creed was on screen.
I love Apollo Creed. Like, I'm like super on board for that character.
Yeah,
it's super noticeable compared to the third one, where Mr. T is such a non-character.
Yes.
Yep. And like, he's really gimmicky. He's just constantly talking to the camera like B.A. Baracus. Yep. He's always saying, "I pity this." But yeah, every time Apollo's on the first one, you actually see his motive and you get an idea of he's smarter. He's a showman. He's looking at this as like as a business essentially.
Yeah.
And it draws a really great parallel of like, no, but Rocky's just in here because he wants to be something. He wants to do something with his life. Yeah. He's an underdog, whereas Apollo Creed is the incumbent overdog, and no one likes an overdog. But he's also never like a total dick. He's never.
No, he's not an antagonist. Like, he's not antagonistic towards Rocky. Like, there's a real camaraderie there, and it comes out over the trilogy. But yeah, I really appreciated that. I don't know. I was amazed by how much I enjoyed Apollo Creed.
Yeah, 100%.
It's good seeing one other role of him in his prime, because all I'd known him before this really is Predator, right?
Yes.
And then seeing him in
Arrested Development.
That's it, Arrested Development as like a parody of himself.
Yes, and like I'd only seen him in. There's another movie. There's another thing he's
Happy
in too.
Gilmore.
He's at Happy Gilmore.
Yeah.
And he's in The Mandalorian as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I don't know. I didn't have a lot of respect for him, especially after Arrested Development. I'm like, oh man, like, I don't know if he's in on the joke, but I think it's pretty clear that he's great in these movies, and he really made me turn around on Carl Weathers. Couple scenes I wanted to point out: Rocky and Adrian getting together in Rocky's apartment.
Yeah, it's a bit problematic.
A bit rapey.
Yeah, it felt very rapey.
Coercion. Like, I don't know if this would not fly 100% in the last 10, 15, 20 years almost.
Like, it's definitely a product of its time, being a 70s film. Like, this sort of stuff just flew.
Just a shy girl, and she's actually into it, but she's just super shy.
Yeah. And you can sort of tell, like, again, this is Stallone at the time's what? Like, I think he's 30 at this time. So he's relatively young. I can't imagine he's been an overly... I'm not going to analyze Stallone's personal life. I don't know much about it, except that I think he was in porn originally. But that aside, like, you can tell he kind of thinks as he's writing. He's like, yeah, this is cool. This is normal. Yeah. And like, that's I don't think it's from a place of maliciousness. I think it's just like, yeah, no, this, she's misunderstood. She needs someone to coach her. It's like, yeah, dude, maybe not, but...
That scene would definitely have a rewrite in today.
Yes.
But yeah.
That part was the most uncomfortable for sure.
Definitely. There was the part that aged the most, because a lot of this doesn't feel modern, but it feels really, really good. Like you say, the script is great. I think the dialogue in this movie feels really natural.
The dialogue's like is amazing. Yeah. It's really like all the little tangents and tidbits, like Rocky's his little quips and like his use of just sort of different words and stuff, like he repeats himself, like he feels so lived in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that's just Stallone's like that's literally how he was brought up, and like, yeah, this was what I used to talk, or if he
Yeah.
just wrote a really good character, I don't know, but
That's the thing. There's like little mannerisms with like the Rocky character that like I really like that make it feel like this real character. Like you said, like how he repeats stuff a couple times. Just the constant and like I don't know. I used to do it all the time. I've done it sometimes, but like the constant just like punch and stuff. Like he's just like he's always moving his arms. Like he's always sort of training. It'll be like walking past Adrian, and he's just like we're gonna punch.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know, like the conversations and like the dialogue, like even when he just pops into the pet shop to talk to Adrian, and it's a one-sided conversation completely. Like she doesn't say anything other than "Bye, Rocky" at the end, like excitedly, like okay, yeah, like I'll address you, but I'm shy, and it's just him. It's this very weird, real conversation that
Yeah.
doesn't feel very substantive, but it feels like we're just watching an awkward person on like a tape, if you know what I
Yeah.
mean, just like talking and just like discuss stuff, trying to make someone laugh, and be like, all right, well, I'm gonna head out then. Like it's just, I felt it. I was like, yeah,
2/3 of us here have worked at EB Games. We've had these conversations.
literally, yeah.
Anyone who's worked retail has been in these situations.
Anyone that's met people,
Yeah.
yeah.
And, like I love the bouncy ball he has. Sort of as he's walking, he pulls out a bouncy ball. It's nothing to do with his hands. Like you can tell he's kind of he needs to always be moving or doing something. And it's like because it sounds wanky, but he's not a thinker. He's a doer. Like he doesn't just sort of sit there and ponder big things. He's like, no, he works with his hands. He's always out walking. It's just a cool little touch. Like, yeah, I want to do that. I want to get a bouncy ball and walk around like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What did you guys think of Adrian and his relationship? Because that was not what I was expecting at all. Like, I guess you expect, cinematic relationships to be a lot more flashy, a lot more, I don't know, two-sided. But it is very much like it's him essentially winning this girl over, but she's also really like she is not, the whole she's got everything going, but she learns love's more important. It's like, no, she's just equally as weird and stilted as he is.
Yeah.
And so he wins there, and it's like these guys are perfect for each other and each other only. She's not the most beautiful girl in the world. She's not like the girl everyone wants, and he wins because he's got the heart of dog. Like it was a really mature relationship, I thought, in terms of it wasn't just this fantasy of she's the dream queen girl that he knows and he gets her. It's like no, this is kind of the girl that no one else wants. But he's just like there's something there.
Yeah, I feel like if you'd said in an 80s movie, this is the love interest, and you showed me a photo of her at the start, I'd be like, oh yeah, she takes off her hat and she's really beautiful at the end, right? Like that's what happens. But no, we don't get that here. Like you're right, they're just kind of perfect for each other. I heard I'm reading around a bit about this movie, like I saw some people say, oh, this is one of the great American love stories and stuff like this. I think that's an interesting take. I think like if it wasn't for the really rapey scene, it would be, it'd be a lot more, it'll feel a lot more timeless. But yeah, it was... It's a really interesting relationship, and I appreciated it. Like it wasn't what I expected.
Speaking of their relationship and of Adrian, I really don't like Paulie. As in, like
he's a bad guy.
I know he's a bad guy, but he's
what a terrible friend.
Like, annoys me. Terrible brother. He's like a real terrible brother. He's like encouraging this guy. Oh, knock my sister's teeth out. Like,
that's the stuff. I think that's the stuff that's aged worst. I feel where he just walks in and he just tears the house down because she's like, I want to go out, and he's actually I don't want to go out, so he just smashes.
Throws the turkey out the window.
He throws a turkey out the window.
Yeah. I'm like, that's the stuff. I'm like, this guy is an awful human
that doesn't fly in this economy. I'll tell you that much.
No.
He reminds me so much of a guy. Of a family friend of mine, like the way he looks, the way he is, it was uncomfortable in certain times. You can probably deduce who he is growing up, but
I think Paulie, suspicion, yeah.
Paulie's awful. Every time he comes in, I'm like, Rocky, just drop this dude.
Yeah, there's like he I don't know. I feel like every time he redeems himself, he also shoots himself in the foot in the next scene as a real asshole. Like, anytime he helps Rocky out just a little bit, he's then like telling Rocky to beat up Adrian, or he's just saying something horrible to Adrian,
or just really racist stuff in the third one.
Yeah.
Oh, that's the thing. Like I feel like he's bad at the first one. Then the second one, I could stomach him for most of it because it seemed like he had a reduced role until like towards the end he comes back and does something. He's a bit of an asshole. And then the third one came around. I'm like, oh my god, he's an asshole again. Like I don't know, but that's the thing. He's very much that sort of family character or whatever that's like pathetic and like tries to leech off people, you know, like he's always like complaining to Rocky, trying to get a favor from Rocky to get up in the world and stuff like that, and then isn't happy with what he's given from Rocky.
Give me a job with that mob boss. Get me a job with. I want to be an enforcer.
Yeah,
like who wants to get into
just
that
got me a watch.
line of work?
Why? Look, and just throws the watch on the ground. Like I'm just like, oh my god, you're ungrateful. But yeah.
We haven't talked about Mickey. The scene where Mickey comes sniffing around and wanting to help out Rocky, and like they have that big fight in the apartment, and Rocky has that. It just yells and yells and yells, and then forgives him. I'm like, oh, holy shit! Because I was like, yeah, screw Mickey, get him out of here. We don't want him around here. And then Rocky forgives him. I'm like, what the hell? But it was really good. Like, it really surprised me. It was. I don't know. It wasn't where I was expecting it to go.
It's an interesting thing, and like I really enjoyed watching Rocky just have this monologue at his door. Like after he's left, he's avoided the confrontation, and he's just going off. Like me and my wife made a joke of this. Like it's like when you think of a comeback after the person leaves, and you're like, that's right. Yeah. And then he gets out all that frustration, and then you just see the old man walking down the street, and he goes and chases him, and they hug, and it's like, I don't know. I was like, oh wow, I really like that, and I really do.
Yeah,
like that. But yeah,
I was really moved by that moment. Like it's a really good display of Rocky Stallone's acting. I think where you can see him kind of like finally expressing all this.
Yeah.
And he gets there, and like you can see how sort of torn up he is, and how he really does just feel like an absolute bum.
Yeah.
But then he's such a nice guy. He's like, he knows that it's not Mickey's fault. He's just sort of angry at the world, and he's angry at, at fate almost.
Yeah.
It's kind of like this sort of like Greek tragedy almost. And so he turns around, and because he's such a good guy, he forgives him. Like it's all right. I didn't expect it to go that way, but I was like, Rocky, yeah, it was the right choice. I felt as well.
Even like Mickey's whole thing of like being like, you know, like you can tell like Mickey with that speech he has where he yells at him, like he's like, you had such potential, and like I believed in you, and now you're just like a mob, like working for the mob and like beating up people in this town, sort of thing. Like, and that's why he treats him like crap, sort of thing, because he doesn't respect him anymore. But yeah, I really enjoy that. But yeah.
Yeah, he's like, hey, Mickey, why are you always mean to me? He's like, I'll tell you why.
Oh my God. And his voice, it's just iconic. Like all his lines and one-liners. One other scene that I was like, oh, this scene also doesn't age well as well. I don't know what your guys' thoughts. The whole conversation with like a 12-year-old girl saying that she's going to be a whore, like she's going to go down the path of being a whore if she keeps talking dirty and stuff like that. I don't know. What did you guys think?
I don't know. It probably wouldn't happen today, but it was. I don't know. I liked to see Rocky out in his community, like trying to help randos. Like I don't know. It just really showed how his heart of gold. I didn't mind it. I was fine with it.
Yeah. I think it wouldn't get made today in terms of
the wording.
People would have a problem saying it's like slut shaming, and that's a whole other issue we could address in our exclusive After Dark podcast. Yeah. But I think the point of the scene is really poignant, where he's helping this girl out, and he's a little bit old-fashioned. You know, he's a little bit kind of like, he perceives himself as a gallant knight. He's got to kind of protect her honor. And and then she's kind of like, yeah, look, I get you, you're probably right. But then at the last minute, she's just like, screw you, weirdo. It's like, yeah.
But the thing, like, she does walk with him. She's like, she knows what he's saying is right, and what he's saying is getting through to her soul. Like she's like, shit, he can see right through my act of like acting tough around these guys. And and then finishes like I don't mind the scene, and like I get the messaging behind it, but it's just the wording obviously doesn't age well. But
it's another good part is like it's just a one-sided conversation. It's just him walking with her for like 2 minutes, and he's just spewing sort of like he's like pleading with her essentially. He's like, look, here's why you don't want to be a bum. You get this. Everything's going to go wrong if you do this. And it's just, I don't
drops her off and then walks back again.
And he's like, all that for nothing. That sucks. Like, he's just a character. He just has such pathos, right? You just can't help but feel sorry for him and really just relate to him and be like, everything he believes is sort of from a really good, earnest place. I was genuinely sort of like astounded with how competent it was and how great of a character Rocky was. And like, to your point you mentioned earlier, like his voice, my wife hated it. She was like halfway through, she's like, I can't do it. I can't stand it anymore. She was out. And I'm like, yeah, it's grating, but it really does. It
Yeah.
grates in a way like, I don't know, it's a good kind of pain. Like you get used to it, and you know people who have, everyone has weird mannerisms in real life, right?
Yeah.
Movies are generally a very sanitized version of them. People talk clean and well, and you strip back the worst parts because you want it to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Whereas Rocky is like, no, this is a real guy. This is like you are watching a human being.
Yeah, you're gonna sit through this awkward conversation in the pet shop. You're gonna,
Yeah,
yeah.
The other part I wanted to mention was like Philadelphia as a city and sort of as a setting. This is one of those great movies that like the place is a character. Like the awful streets, the awful housing. Just it looks terrible. Working class Philly in the 70s looks like a hell of a place to live. But it really just creates such a good sense of both like the like beautiful community moments, like the people always sort of gathered around the drums and singing, and everyone's like really friendly.
Yeah.
They don't just like try to mug him. They're not like, oh, random, let's bash him. They're like, no, they share some wine with him, and they all sort of know Rocky from around the block.
Yeah.
And then so there's like beauty in there, but then you just see like these row houses and this horrible grey color palette of everything. And then you get these moments where he's jogging towards the state house, and there's the sun in the background. It's like, it really captures sort of the oppression of like of being working class in that sitting.
Yep.
Yeah. Anything else about Rocky 1? The final fight, I guess, is the other thing we haven't talked about a whole lot. I enjoyed the foreshadowing where he's like, oh, my shorts are going to be white, not red, but they're red in the poster. And then he's just covered in blood by the end and his shorts are red. I don't know. I thought it was a nice little touch. And where he cuts his eye, I really enjoyed the injuries. They looked really good. Like that makeup was
really good.
Because like I feel like I've seen 70s movies that weren't as well done as this one was.
Yeah.
No, yeah, really solid. And the last fight is fair. Like, it's shot in such a way to obviously make you kind of confused and make you feel a bit sort of. It's very cacophonous and it's very disorienting because it's meant to be like Rocky's feeling.
Yeah.
And so I had to go back and watch it again because like, what the hell just happened? Because it literally just goes
the bell. Yeah.
Split decision. What the hell does that mean?
Everything in 20 seconds. And
that's the thing. You just hear like in the background, you hear someone say split decision, Creed wins. And then it's like, what?
And the music's like,
yeah,
like going on in the background, the crowd's going off. Rocky, I was like, this is giving me anxiety. I was like, it's chaos right now. What's going on?
Yeah.
But then it's such a beautiful moment, like the ending, right, where they come together. They won life. They didn't win the fight, but they won life.
Yeah.
And this is one of the only films I can think of that has a perfect use of freeze frame. Like freezing on Rocky's sort of like his awkward grin, but he's bashed up. And like them together, and it's just the music just peaks, just culminates in that moment. I'm like, oh, holy crap, this is really good.
Yeah.
Really good stuff.
Sorry, talking about it being confusing. The other thing that surprised me is like picking on Mighty Ducks again is they talk about the rules a lot in Mighty Ducks. They're like, oh, we're on to the second half and whoever wins this game will get to this. They don't tell you what's going on in the match. Like, is there 15 rounds? I didn't know before going into it. I'm just like, Rocky, you can do this. And then there's like a time skip. And I'm just like, I don't really know what's going on, but I'm along for the ride. Like, I don't know. They let you figure it out. It's fine. It was good.
Yeah. Yeah, it doesn't matter. You just see him getting punched in the face a lot. You know that's bad.
A lot.
Yeah.
All right, let's move on to Rocky 2. Rocky struggles in family life after his bout with Apollo Creed, while the embarrassed champ insistently goads him to accept a challenge for a rematch. In my head all day, I've had trouble separating this movie from Rocky 1.
Yeah, Luke, you say that's not the case. Please explain how this movie's different.
So I don't know if I can now. Like, the more I have sat back on, because I've watched all three in the last 24 hours, and I'm starting to be like, okay, yeah, I don't know, like, I'm having trouble separating 2 and 3 for me, literally, because like,
really,
that couldn't be more different for me, but yeah.
No, I get it, but I'm like, okay, I know in Rocky 2 he's like sort of more successful and like, I don't know, like. Yeah, I don't know. I guess because I just watched Rocky 3 afterwards, it's fresh in my mind, and Rocky 2 has kind of slipped out of my head for a bit. But
Yeah, I love a sequel that happens directly after the original, like minutes after this one, and they're getting rushed to hospital, and Apollo Creed's still goading him, and like, I don't know, I love them being hospital buds too, like the camaraderie there in hospital. Like it was really, I don't know, it was a good way to start this movie.
It literally shows the last minute, the last 3 minutes of number one again, which is interesting. But yeah,
there's a few ways to do a sequel, right? You can do like you can do like a spiritual successor. Like you do Terminator 2, which is kind of like captures some of the essence, but twists the familiarities into new ways, and so it feels very different, but it's hitting the same notes. You can do ones that are completely unrelated, but sort of have some character. Or you could do this, which is essentially like remake the film you just made, but just continue the in-world story. And that's what this does, and it's not a bad thing. It is one of the things that I think about. Like, I don't know why I would ever, unless I was doing a rewatch of all, I don't know if I would ever watch Rocky 2 again specifically.
Yeah.
But if it was 78 and I remember Rocky was good, I'd be like, I'll definitely see sequel. I'd come out and be like, that was awesome, because it was like, it's more Rocky. And that's all it is. It's much more Rocky.
Yeah.
And it's not lazy. Like the movie's not, I think I mentioned it before, like it taps into all the actual ways that it would feel this way. Like, he's not a smart guy, so he can't read off cue cards.
Man, I really felt for him trying to do those ads. Like,
it was
again,
brutal.
like really awkward, kind of hard to watch. I just felt for him. Like, it was great. That was the part of this movie that stood out to me that I really remembered. But just him struggling to read is.
It's so brutal. It's so brutal as well. The guy's getting so frustrated.
Yeah,
and you can tell he's like, oh well. And it's like, oh, rendezvous, like that's a weird word, or like he's just like, it's like, okay, every time there has to be something that's tripping me up, or like one more take. Like he wants to do it, like he wants to. It's kind of heartbreaking, because it's like, oh man, this poor dude. And then it's like he can't get a job anywhere as well, so he's like going through all the like employment places, and they're just like, no, sorry, we can't help you. You need to do something with labor, and he's just like, I want an office job like you've got. Like, I want to settle down a bit, but
like it's engagement with fame and with that sort of, and like the legacy or the aftermath of the fight is really interesting.
Yeah.
Like obviously he goes out and he buys the car, he buys everyone watches, he buys Adrian the clothes, and they're like, "Can you afford this?" He's like, "Oh, it's fine." It's like, that's exactly what stupid people do with money when they shouldn't have it, or they haven't figured out how to earn it properly or something. Like it's why the lotto always ruins people's lives, because
he gets a house with a 19% interest rate. That's wild.
Like, it's like, you don't do that, Rocky.
No.
And then he doesn't do it properly or cleverly, and so he's then left facing a similar dilemma of like, he's nothing if he's not a boxer, but he wants to surpass that. And that is a really cool dilemma. That's a really interesting way to look at it. Of what do you like if the one thing that makes you somebody is something you don't want to do? Then what do you do? Who are you after that?
Yeah, I like that we see the end of the first one, like the celebration of him going all the rounds. He didn't win, and the success from that wasn't what it was a win for his life, I suppose, but it wasn't a win financially, right? Like he's not set up for life like we kind of led to believe at the start, and he's got to work for it, and him trying to find a job and sucks. I feel for it.
Yeah, and it mines the tension between him and Adrian, because Adrian doesn't want him to fight anymore.
Yeah.
And he's like, there's that very strange line where he's like, "I never asked you to stop being a woman. Don't ask me to stop being a man." I'm like, I see what you're trying to say, Rocky. It doesn't quite.
It's a little clumsy, but it's also Rocky saying it, so maybe it's okay.
Yeah, and it's like, sort of that great sort of, he goes with Mickey and he turns away and he's like, "Sorry," but that's just what he has to do. I'm like, it's that one. A lot of that stuff's really poignant, I think.
I was a little frustrated by the training regime in this one.
The whole thing in this with his eyes, like his eyesight that's not addressed again.
That's right. Yeah, that's one of the big reasons, because he'll go blind if he fights again.
Yeah, if he gets hit in that eye,
Yeah.
And Mickey refuses him because he's like, "No, look, like you can't see this finger until it's here. He's going to knock your head off."
I liked some of the training stuff with Mickey. Like I liked him like tying back his arm so he has to learn to fight with the other hand. Then he's also got him chasing chickens around, which felt a little Mr. Miyagi to me. Like it was a little wax on, wax off.
Very fabled. Very chicken chaser.
Yeah, chicken chaser is what I had written in my notes.
Yeah, I know it's clever. They're clever ways to think of it, right? Like, I don't know if it's the first or second where he like ties his feet together. And he's like, you got to learn to move with the lace, keeping them there.
Pretty sure that's this movie.
Yeah, I guess it's just like cool sort of things that make you remember it, right? Like it could just show 20-minute montage of just punching, but it's like no, here's little features of it, or here's some interesting things that you've probably never thought about that are like, oh, this is it gives you an insight into the world of boxing or the world of this professional fighting where there is like you've got to actually think and plan and train. It's a little bit more clever than just learn to punch good or learn to get punched good in the case of Rocky.
Yeah. And that's the thing. I like the thing of Apollo in this. Obviously, he wants this fight and he's much more motivated to.
He's hungry.
Out.
He's hungry.
He's hungry. He's got that hunger. And like for him to come in out without all the showmanship, without the costumes and like the music and throwing stuff to the crowd, he just comes out like,
talk about that
I'm going to knock you out. Like he's not walking around and going, I want you, I want you, I want you to everyone for like 10 minutes. Like he's like, no, I'm gonna. He's just like, you're going down, no matter what. Like, and I feel like even though Rocky wins this one, I feel like he gets shit beat out of him way more in this one. Like the whole time, I'm like, oh my god, like when is he going to switch to southpaw? Because he's getting his ass handed to him.
Right,
like this is That
was the other
fun. The last round.
Fun gimmick of this fight is like you got your switch. That's your secret weapon, and then he chooses not to do it because that's fighting dirty. That's tricks. So he fights right-handed, which is not his dominant hand. Like I don't know, Rocky, you're such a beast.
He's a role model. He's a role model we can all look up to. The running montage in this is pretty egregious, where the entire city's kids come out and follow him.
Yeah,
for some reason. And they're just like hugging him, and they're just like,
it's the city, man. The city's really behind him. You've got the hobos singing by the fire drum, and kids helping you run.
And you mess with one of us, you mess with all of us. You know?
That line crossed my mind a few times.
Yeah.
No, that was because this one's directed by Stallone, whereas the other one's directed by a guy named
John G. Avildsen.
Avildsen, yeah. And so I think you can sort of tell the second one feels a little less refined. Like the first one's got a really great, like, I don't know, almost feels like you're there, like a fly on the wall. Whereas this one just doesn't quite have the same. You can tell he's a bit more, doesn't quite know how to tap into it as well. And there's just little choices like this where it's like, I see what you're going for. It's just not as well done, not as nuanced.
Should we move to Sorry, go ahead.
So great line. How about investing in condominiums? Condominiums? I never use.
Yeah,
that's a great line.
That's good material.
Is it funny to anyone else that like his child is born and he doesn't see the child for weeks because he's just like, no, I'll wait till Adrian and me see them together, and the baby's just like in another room, like, where's my parents? Like, Rocky's like, no, I wanted to wait till you were awake. Now I can see him. Oh, look, there he is. Like,
that's some real 70s dad shit.
That's some real 70s. That poor child has been abandoned.
I was going to save this to Rocky 3, Luke, but is Goku the 90s Rocky in terms of fatherhood?
Goku is
because Rocky 3, both parents just leave that kid behind and go train for months in San Francisco,
4 months in another city,
he doesn't care about the birth. He's just a terrible parent. I'm sorry.
Yeah, they're not good. Not good.
I don't know if we're going to get that addressed in 4, 5, and 6. I believe it has something to do with maybe. I don't know.
His kid is in a few of them.
Well, so that baby is actually his baby. The actor,
really?
That baby is his real baby. I didn't know until because with Amazon, which I watched this on, when you pause it, it comes up with the cast in that scene, and it came up with his son's name playing the baby, and I was like, oh my god, that's crazy.
What's his son's name?
Master Stallone.
Something Stallone. There's Sage Stallone, which is the older one. The one that appeared in the movie was I don't know.
While you look that up, Rocky 3. Rocky faces the ultimate challenge from a powerful new contender and must turn a former rival to help regain his throne as the undisputed fighting champion.
Sergio Stallone? That's a weird... I don't know how to pronounce it. Sergio?
I think that is Sergio. It's just, maybe is that the original? I don't know. I've never seen that. I have never seen a better example of the 70s and then like the transition to the 80s than these two movies.
Yeah, right.
Chalk and cheese in terms of like, if anyone's ever studying film history, it's like, what was the 70s like and then what was the 80s? Like, how do you define them? You just show them these two movies and go, see. A lot of cocaine was had.
So 80s. It's so 80s.
A lot of weird choices were made.
Yeah.
It's such a different film.
I wanted to get your guys' thoughts. How do we all feel about Hulk Hogan and the wrestler versus the boxer to start the movie?
It was fun. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's kind of dopey, obviously, but it so reminded me. Was it Conor McGregor that fought Manny Pacquiao? Like I was just had flashbacks to that fight. It reminded me of that. Yeah, Floyd Mayweather, whoever it was. But
yeah,
was,
and I mean,
yeah, like a weird. It's like the UFC at its birth. You get like sumo wrestler fighting this like Krav Maga guy. It's like, this is not a fight. What the hell's happening? But it's just
it's just UFC fighters coming over and fighting the Logan Paul and Jake Paul brothers all the time. Yeah. So it's celebrity fights. Yeah,
like it's real dumb. But
Thunder Lips is such a stupid name.
It's so bad. So bad. I love that. Like, I had to laugh, like, just like in this world, and like because it was the 80s as well. Like they're just like, oh my god, it's a professional wrestler. He will legitimately beat you up. Like it's just this funny thing to me being such a wrestling fan. I'm like, oh, it's so funny to look at this world like back when, not necessarily had the wool pulled over their eyes, but it was like they much more believed into this, like this
thought it was real.
He even says that at one point, doesn't he? He's like, "Oh, you think this is all fake?" And then he drives him or something.
He just he destroys all the guards. He's like throwing them at meters.
The movie makes it clear that the wrestling is real because he like breaks his back and he's like, "I'm going to murder you." And Rocky's like, "Cut the gloves off. I need to actually stop this guy." And then at the end, he's just like, "Hey, good fight, man."
Yeah,
that's part of
the show.
Like, you just wiped out 30 police.
It's real stupid. It's so stupid.
The women are jumping on the backs and trying to strangle people. Like, it's like, oh, it was great. It was straight away. I was like, okay, this is very different than the last two Rocky. Like, this is a different tone completely. It's just almost slapstick with this character, but
it's a lot more. Yeah, it's a lot more goofy.
I
know something about seeing Stallone playing Rocky. Like, it's like a proper gentleman now. He's wearing suits with overcoats.
Yeah,
he can talk a lot better.
Yes,
he's kind of, he's more gentlemanly. Like he's really got his life together. There's something about that. It's like he's lost the rockiness, and obviously the story deals with it.
It does.
But at the same time, it's kind of trying to have its cake and eat it too, where it's like he has improved a lot, but it's like, but the things that he hasn't improved on, he can still improve on them too. But he's always still the best. I don't know. It's a little bit more like...
once he gets his mojo back, he started speaking in like slurred again? Like,
maybe.
And he pulled out the leather jacket and the fedora again, and
the fingerless gloves.
Yeah. So bouncing ball. Where was the ball? He didn't have any suit.
Exactly. He lost the sight of who he was. Like, it would have been a cool scene where he's just alone at a bin fire in the streets of Philly, burning these fancy clothes. And he just looks into like a puddle and is like, "Who am I?"
And then
give me that.
Randomly, the ball just bounces down the street next to him and lands next to him. He picks it up. He's like, "Wow, there it is."
And then it's the girl from the first one. She's like, "I didn't become no whore." And
she's like, "But you did. So fix yourself up."
Exactly.
I really enjoyed this film though. Like as goofy as it is.
Yeah,
it's fun.
This is some grade A 80s goofiness that I love.
Like that's it. It's so 80s. It's cheesy. It's fun. It's ridiculous. The stakes are so much.
Clothes.
Like the color palette, everything about it. It looks so different.
I love Carl Weathers' beach running suit. It's just like this.
Oh my god!
This tank top that's cut off at the belly button. It's
crop top and turtleneck almost. Like it's like really tight up here. Knee-high socks, short shorts. There's like super slow-mo shots of basically just their junk while they're running. Like,
it literally shows their thighs.
It's like, oh man, I'm motivated.
There's some thighs.
Yeah.
Their hair as well. Like they're both just sort of much more noticeable perms.
Yeah.
Yes.
Rocky's hair is not nice.
No. We skipped over the start where Paulie appears. and he's like a real dick to Rocky, and he wants a. What does he want? He wants a part of the empire or whatever. And he smashes the Rocky pinball machine. And then we get the reveal that Paulie hooked Rocky up with a pregnant woman to lose Rocky's virginity. I'm just like, what the fuck? Why are we starting a movie off like this?
Stallone's got some baggage that he's dealing with. I wonder how much of this is just his life in a nutshell.
He's like, Paulie is damn brother.
Paulie is just such a weird. Like, I guess the whole point is that he's like, this is his friend from childhood.
Yeah,
he's his oldest friend, but he is just never really. Even when he's like comes around, he's like you said before, Luke. He's always just useless. He's always just very like he doesn't do much as his ring man.
No.
Whenever he gets in the second one, he gets in the job and he becomes a pretty successful mobster, and he's still not very helpful. Like,
he loses a bunch of weight in the second one.
Yeah.
And then
he gets a free car.
Yeah, don't get it.
And I don't know, like that's the thing. Paulie, I'm not a fan of, obviously. Then he has that thing where they get into like a punch up, and then he's just like, "Can I have a job?" Like really pathetic. I mean, he's just like, "Why don't you ask?" Like all you have to do is ask.
Yeah, that's
simple. Like that's classic, noble Rocky. He's just like, yeah, sure, no problem, man. You should have just asked. You touched on it earlier, but Mr. T's bad. This is like the first time where I'm like, oh, this is just like it's too obviously cliche. It's silly. It's cartoonish.
I don't know. Does it kind of work though? Because we already have Creed and Rocky with such big roles in this movie. Is it too much to have a villain that's nuanced? I don't know. I think it's kind of works that he's basically pure evil, right? Like he's
should have just been more like a silent stone cold killer. Like I'm
maybe
gonna beat you instead of just like, yeah, I'm gonna get you, and like, oh, I'm gonna kill your coach, and I hate you, and like he's just
gonna be orphans.
Just always trying to fight people in the crowd. He's like yelling out the crowd. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the acting, probably, that contributes to why it's so bad, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you can tell that it's like, can you please recreate your role from the A-Team in every way? And he's like, I can do that.
I Pity the Fool was coined in this movie.
Is that what it's coined from this, is it?
Apparently. Wow. It became his catchphrase from this movie.
That's why. Am I wrong? Is the A-Team after this?
I think the A-Team might be after. This is like one of his early
This probably
roles.
got him into the A-Team. This probably is the beginning of B.A. Baracus.
That's wild then, because I wouldn't expect that. Like you're right, the film would feel a little bit crowded if you had three big characters, but at the same time, like there's something there about Clubber is very clearly is just Rocky again, right? He's the same sort of spirit. He's the hungry fighter. They say that over and over again in this film.
Yeah,
he's got the hunger that you once had. He's got the eyes. Apollo's like, I see it in him the way I saw it in you.
Yeah.
So it's clearly like, this is like another Rocky essentially. But by not having any of the nuance or the depth that we see of Apollo in the first one or Rocky, he just becomes kind of ridiculous, especially when he's so fast, like so jive talking and just it's like constant ball of hate.
Yeah.
It's I don't know. He's meant to be a mirror and he's not quite a mirror. I think I'd probably prefer to see more of him and Rocky rather than Apollo, even though I love Apollo's dynamic. Like, I don't know. Maybe that's a worse film because this is just a great.
That is a worse film.
So this is a really
film.
This is a really good love story between two bros.
Yes, it is.
All right, I take it back. I'm glad he has no role because we need more Apollo Creed.
Yeah.
We lose Mickey in the process. Mr. T kills him with hate somehow. So much anger that it gets into his heart and he has a heart attack.
Yeah.
That was a good choice, killing Mickey. Like, as it gives stakes, right? I'm always talking about stakes. I'm like a friggin' meat house. But like, you see someone who's really important, and but it's also done really cheesily. There's a lot of scenes of him being like, I can't do it anymore.
Yeah.
He has these little speeches a lot.
The reveal of him like holding back, people trying to challenge Rocky for the championship though, because he didn't think Rocky could do it. That was a pretty good reveal. Like there was
he's trying to protect him from getting his ass kicked. He's like, no, we got it. And like that's the thing with Mr. T being like, I want to fight you. I'm the number one ranked like contender. Like I'm the top boxer. And he's just like, it'll never happen. I don't care what your rank is. You're not fighting him. And he's like, otherwise I'm quitting. Like, no, 100%. It's like, oh shit, yeah, he really is just like, no, giving him chumps. He's basically, doing the Logan Paul thing of like giving him all these washed up fighters. Like
he's a Twitch streamer fighting him
over. Yep.
Look, do you pity that fool, Logan Paul?
I pity the fool. Well, he's a WWE superstar now. Speaking of crossovers, so
wow, what a world we've left ourselves with.
Yep.
I love the low opinion of LA in the 80s. I feel like every movie that shows LA in the 80s, it's just like a hive of scum and villainy. It's dirty, it's disgusting. Everybody hates LA in the 80s for some reason.
It's pretty funny. Everyone is a meth head.
Yeah.
Wow. I mean, you can just look, but it's kind of true, right? There was a lot of cocaine being done. Like you look at Stallone in this film, he's a lot more gaunt. They even mentioned, I think, at one point, he's lost all his weight.
He's like a middleweight.
Yeah, it's like you can tell that he's thinned out his face. He just looks different. He's gotten 2 years older, 3 years older, I don't know, but he just looks very like he's probably had surgery as well.
I mean, he looks shredded though. Like he does look shredded.
Like he's lost all of his body fat, but
yeah.
That was in no way. That was without a doubt helped with a lot of white powder.
Does that help you get shredded? I didn't know that.
It just speeds you up. So if you're training, you're punching like nothing else, like a wrecking machine.
How do we feel about it? How do we feel about Adrian's transformation in this film? Rocky's a lot more eloquent. She kind of becomes the beautiful girl I kind of expected her to be at the end of Rocky 1, right? Like she's not timid anymore either, right? Like
no.
she's a very different character.
She is. She's also lost sight of who she was. She's a shy, sheepish girl.
Yeah.
Just had to take that sweater and glasses off, and boom, there she was. But she's grown into the comfort of that lifestyle.
That really lame line. How'd you get so tough? I live with a fighter. It's really lame.
Yeah, it's not the best. It feels natural though. It would feel weird if she was always just this super timid, like never spoke, and her kid's like, "Hey, mom, could I have this?" And she's still just like can't communicate or function properly.
Especially since Rocky's had such a transformation in this film. It'd be weird to leave her behind.
They're millionaires. They're celebrities almost. Like it's She's
remember, this is the early day of Reagan. This is like early Reaganomics, where the American dream just seems prosperous. You see it in every 80s film. It's very white picket fence, and they're like, "No, you too can be great like this." And taps into that a lot.
Yeah. You said earlier, Conan, about Rocky 1 being one of the only good uses of a freeze frame to end a film. This one has an even better one.
Yep. It's even quoted in Scrubs several decades later. Rocky 3 freeze frame ending. It's great. It's a classic. I think this is the classic freeze frame ending.
It was iconic, man. When they were even before it freeze framed, I was like, it's going to freeze frame here when they go to punch each other. I was like, I just feel it in my bones.
Let me rephrase that. Sorry. It's not just Rocky 1. It's all of Rocky's uses of freeze frames are really good. Because there's always like a middle montage freeze frame that's actually really effective too.
Triumphs.
Yeah, the triumphant one. And then there's always the end. Like the ending one of all of them are really good. Like this is very few movies can pull off montage and freeze frame in the same film. And it's apparently every Rocky movie can.
Rocky's done it 3 times at least. I don't know, 4, 5, and 6.
I'm very excited to see where they go from here.
You watch. He probably originated the. You're probably wondering how I got here. Like Rocky 5, he gets punched.
Record scratch. Yeah.
He created the brilliance of it and then brought it all down.
Yeah, Rocky Balboa was a real menace. Anyway.
All right. Any more thoughts about Rocky 3? Let's rank them.
No.
Let's rank them. Luke, go ahead. How do you rank these movies?
Come back to me.
Right.
I've watched them all today, like in the last 24 hours. So
Conan,
these are my thoughts.
Do you have a rank ready?
At this stage, I think it's just a pretty easy 1, 2, and 3. I'm super curious. I think I mentioned to you, Grant, there's a rewatchables episode of just 3 and 4. There's not one of 1 or 2 for some reason. But I see watching this, I'm like, 3 is a whole different beast.
Yeah.
And that is a kind of weird, I think that'll be like an artifact of fascination for me going forward, where I'll be like, remember that time Rocky sort of was still Rocky, but became a weird 80s action film in a way as well.
Yeah.
And I think it only gets weirder going forward. But I'm like, I can see a world where in 10 years, I'm like, Rocky 3 is actually surprisingly fun. And I prefer it because number 2, like I said before, is the first one again. And I don't think I'll ever watch the second one because I would just watch the first again.
I think there's something about Rocky ending the Cold War in one of these movies. I'm not 100% sure, but I think it goes that way. For me, it's 1, 3, 2. I really enjoy 3. Yeah. It's a lot of fun, and 2 is too similar to 1 for me. As much as I respect it.
I'm with Griner. Yeah, I had a ball with 3, like legitimately, where I was like, oh my god, I want to keep watching this. I want to keep watching this. This is fun, even though it's silly and there's a bunch of silliness in it.
But 2's a better movie.
Yeah, baby. But
I don't know. I think if I was going to watch one of these again, it probably would be 3. Like, I think I respect 1 more, but 3 is probably the one I'll put on again, just to see those thighs.
The beach montage with the thighs, so that automatically puts it probably to the top of my list. No, it's 1, 3, 2.
3 has got the most YouTube moments for sure. And like, yes, Carl Weathers is a good screensaver from number 3.
It's true.
And Rocky finally starts ducking in number 3. He's got technique with his boxing, so it was good.
Yeah, he finally learns to fight.
Yep. All right. Well, that does it for the first part of our Rocky trilogy of trilogies. I've already used that for Star Wars. Anyway, next week doing 4, 5, and Rocky Balboa 6.
Yep.
I'm keen for it. I'm keen to see where these go because I think they get bad and good.
Oh,
Balboa's dope.
Yeah.
So I just want to say, like, I had never seen these. Obviously, like you guys, I hadn't seen any of these Rocky films.
Yeah.
But to say that I have come around on Stallone, like finishing 3 today, I was like, now I really want to watch 4, 5, and 6. And then I was like, oh, that's right. It is this next quarter. I'm watching 4, 5, and 6. And I was like, yes, I'm going to watch 4 tonight. I'm like, I'm super keen to keep this Rocky train going. I'm like, I need to know where it happens and probably where it all goes wrong. But I'm keen to get through them all. And
yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. I mean, it's too early to say, but do you guys think you'd ever rewatch this trilogy and potentially all, like, will these ever become films you're like, I'm going to rewatch the Rockies?
I could see myself doing that now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. Like I say, I think 1 and 2 I probably respect more than enjoy. I don't know if I could be bothered to. I feel like I'll watch 3 again, but I just don't know.
With a start of 3, 4, and 5.
Possibly. I'll see. I think I understand the rewatchables logic, but maybe I'll listen to that episode.
I would feel like I'd watch 3 again. I'd probably watch 1 again just to see like what my thoughts were now that I've watched the trilogy and I understand the character arc and everything. I think it'd be interesting to go back and watch number 1 again.
Yeah.
As opposed to when I, first half of that movie, I walked in with like my hatred of Stallone, where I was like, I don't want to do this.
Yeah.
I could probably appreciate it a bit more, but I still really, enjoyed it.
Yep.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us for this first part of our Rocky-a-thon. This episode of Good, Bad, and Worst was brought to you by The Taste of Iron by C.V. Clarke. Get it on Amazon. It's very, very good.
A true underdog story.
It is a true underdog story. If you like this podcast, you might enjoy us talking about video games on our other podcast, The Good, the Bad, and the Worst. We're actually doing the Last of Us TV show, so it's more related to this podcast than usual. It's a great show. Listen to us, have our thoughts on it. We've played the games. We can tell you where it's going, like millions of other people, but we're special. Come listen to us. Rate us on...
Good, Bad, Worst crossover with...
Yeah, it kind of is. It really kind of is. Rate us on Spotify, iTunes. Tell your mum about us. Follow us on socials. Thanks for listening, and we'll catch you next week.
Da 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 da.